turn it over to Lydia now. And Lydia Neuroth is the project manager of Virginia Untold at the Library of Virginia. And she will be speaking about the Virginia Untold project, which is a project that provides digital access to records that document some of the lived experiences of enslaved and free Black people in the Library of Virginia's collections. I will turn it over to you now.
Awesome. Thank you, Bethany. I am going to share my screen so I can share this. And I really enjoyed that segue because I'm going to be talking about indexing as well, in addition to kind of explaining the Virginia Untold project. And I just want to reiterate that I've really enjoyed hearing about everyone's projects. And there's, of course, some really great overlap between the work. So again, my name is Lydia. I'm the project manager for Virginia Untold at the Library of Virginia. And I do just want to give an introduction to the project itself. Virginia Untold does provide access. It's a digital portal, sort of, to records that document enslaved and free Black people in the Library of Virginia's collections. The project began in 2013, many years ago, really as a naming project to go in and index records that have material related to this history, kind of surface that material and then digitize it and make it available online. But the project has evolved in many ways over the years, most notably kind of in a couple years ago in February 2020, when we received the NHPRC grant to hire a project manager, who is me, to focus on two separate tasks. One is digitizing our free Black registers from different Virginia localities, which I'm going to actually spend most of my time talking about today. And then also to process a lot of material from the city of Richmond, one of the localities that is just currently underrepresented within our database. And really, I see hiring a project manager, hiring myself, as a way of moving the project, which wasn't really a project, from a digital collection to something that thinks more holistically about how we do this work. How do we engage different audiences? How do we collaborate? How do we really focus on outreach? So that's kind of where I'm thinking of the project moving, and I'd really like to see the work go. And I think transcription is such a huge part of that. So I'm really happy to be able to talk a little bit about that today. And so as Virginia Untold currently exists, it's a website. If you guys haven't checked it out, please do. The website will be changing soon, I'm happy to say. It'll be much more intuitive and hopefully user-friendly. But the way to access those records now is from the Search the Narrative page. There's several different ways to search by name or locality or record type that provides you access to those digitized documents within the library's collections. But what I really want to focus on is one huge part of the project, which is digitizing our free Black registers. So some of you might be familiar with what these materials are. In the 1790s, the Virginia General Assembly passed an act that required all county clerks to register their free Black populations and record them in books in the courthouses. And this included name, age, identifying marks, and typically how they were emancipated or if they were freeborn. Some of these registers even go so far as to document things like former enslaver or where these people were born, providing a lot of genealogical and identifying information. They are an incredible resource. I also just want to mention, because I've heard so much about this in other projects just now, this act is really sort of representative of the state of Virginia wanting to control its Black population. It is a kind of direct representation of trying to control these people. And if you were found and you were not registered, you could be put in jail. So again, we see those ties to incarceration, early mass incarceration of the Black population, which I think is just really fundamental to point out. So that's just to say that these are really valuable resources. The Library of Virginia has about 37 of them in our collection, and part of this grant is to digitize them. And we've actually done that. They are now digitized. We've just recently got the scans back up, and they will go into FromThePage and be transcribed before they go into Virginia Untold with their full index transcription. In addition to the registers that we have in our current possession, we also want to work with clerks throughout the state of Virginia that have them in their local courthouses, and either collaborate in a way that that allows us to accession them into our collection so we can preserve them better, or leave them at the local level and obtain scans so we can digitize them and also make them available. So that's just to say that we're trying to think about this in a comprehensive way. How do we provide access to these materials at a full level? And so we've had a lot of success with the Arlington County Free Black Registers. These are already up on FromThePage. We actually worked with a clerk before we got our grant to sort of test out to see how this would go. We ended up acquiring them, conserving them, rebinding them, and then digitize them. So we recently launched these on FromThePage back in October around a transcribe-a-thon. Very successful. I think promoting it in that way was very useful, and is largely why they are almost completely transcribed. As you can see, they are what I call freeform or paragraph style text. So with the exception of some indexing that really threw people off, it was a very straightforward project. I think it made sense to a lot of our users. But what we've had to grapple with recently is that not all registers are created equally or the same way. So as you can see, the image on the left here is from Amelia County, Virginia. This image here lends itself to a very traditional style of transcription. We're asking users to transcribe verbatim everything they see on the page. It makes sense. On the right, though, is an image from Southampton County, the Free Negro Register there. It looks like a modern day spreadsheet. It's a ledger style. Many of us are familiar with this problem. So we knew this was going to be an issue. We talked a lot about it. Of course, in FromThePage, you do have to set your transcription style at the collection level. So we knew that we would have to put all of our Free Black registers that were freeform into one collection, and all of our ledger style registers into another collection, and then talk about how we would do the headings for the ledger style. They're not all the same. How would we mix it up? It was a lot. It was kind of a point of conflict. How are we going to do this? It was kind of holding up our process as well. We really want to make these available as quickly as possible, and we've gotten a lot of requests for them. There's another issue too, that even within the county level, sometimes registers are recorded differently. So the image on the left is from Westmoreland County in the early 18 teens to the 20s, and the one on the right is in later years. Either a different clerk or the clerk changed their mind about how they were going to record these free people. And so even setting that at, if we were to split a county level, I think that that's confusing for users if you're thinking about groupings and organization and how people are accessing these materials. So again, just something we were trying to work through. And so finally, we sort of had what I call a come to Jesus meeting, where we're talking about it as a group. And it was actually Sonia Coleman, the head of our transcription projects, who suggested, why don't we think about how we are extracting the data? Why don't we think about what we're going to do with the registers? And so it shifted us to think about how we could actually index it instead. So instead of doing verbatim transcriptions, asking users to treat all of the registers the same way and go through and extract the data that we're looking for. And that's kind of what we've landed on. So I went through a sampling of the registers and tried to pull out all of the fields that were recorded. Even if some don't have those, just a kind of a full comprehensive view of all of the possible fields that might be recorded in some of these registers. And then present our users with, in the same way, the freeform register alongside of the spreadsheet pulling out that information. And so where we are now is we've actually set up a test group. We've pulled a sampling of about 7 registers, images from 7 registers, and asked staff to test these internally, to go through, transcribe a few pages, and see how it works. Are the headings intuitive? Do they make sense? What is left out? We've also talked about various fields that we can make drop-down menus. So things like locality we can control for, or gender, I think, is another one we could probably do that with. How are we going to do the date formats? So that's kind of where we are. Our test group had some really great, helpful feedback for us, and we are going to make those updates to our headings and instructions too. Instructions are going to be really important in this particular scenario, making it very explicit to our users and our transcribers what the goal is. The goal is to index. We're not looking for you to transcribe every the, and but on the page. We're trying to get data from this, and ultimately this is where the data is going. We're thinking about putting it in the Virginia Open Data Portal. We're thinking about how it's going to show up on the website. And I think cluing transcribers into that conversation is going to be really fundamental to the success of the project. As I was talking with Sarah about this earlier, I think that this will be a cognitive shift for some of our transcribers who get really, for better or for worse, in the weeds about all of the data, all of the text they see on the page. They want it to be a verbatim one-to-one, and we're asking them to do something a lot different. But in the same way, I think it's going to engage a different type of user in that process that really enjoys, like some of you all have said, this indexing, where you're just kind of, I don't want to be flippant, but it's sort of like a treasure hunt. You're pulling out that information, and it's satisfying in many ways. So we're going to go with it. We're going to see how it goes. And I do want to be cognizant of my time, so maybe I can answer questions from the group if those come up. But that's my spiel.
Awesome. Thank you so much. That was really cool to see how you're able to incorporate such diverse documents into the project by kind of isolating those important metadata fields that, you know, are across all documents. I think that was really cool to see. And I bet there's other people that would be interested in doing something similar that are wanting to do indexing.